Hi YouTube, Neil here, FaceliftInteriors, and welcome back to our channel. Apologies for not doing a video in a while. Business has been quite busy towards the end of the year. Yeah, it's been really tough to try and get one up. Apologies for that. Going forward into January, we're going to be trying our utmost to try and upload more regularly, so stick with us and we will try and get more videos out in the new year. So in this video, we're going to show you how to prep a bespoke tub chair frame. This is a brand new frame. We're going to show you how we go about prepping it and then upholstering it as well. So we've never done a video like this before, so hopefully this will be quite interesting for you. So as always, if you like upholstery tips and tricks and tutorials, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell so you'll see each time a new video becomes available. And also don't forget to follow us over on Instagram, where a lot of our finished work goes. So obviously we'll do a B-roll at the end of the video, but over on Instagram you get to see the really nice pictures that are all finished at the end. And as of next year, we're going to make a real effort to start doing some little videos on Instagram, little short stories. So let's get to this video. This is how we go about prepping and upholstering a small tub chair frame for upholstery. Action!
Right, howdy. How's everybody doing? I'm a bit bunged up, so you have to forgive me. I've been a bit sick this week, you know what I mean? But I'm getting better. I'm on the back end. So here is a bespoke tub chair. As you can see, it's all made out of hardwood. We only do very good quality. We don't make these in-house, we order them in, but as you can see, very good quality. So you can see the quality of the frame. So this is the first time we've done this. This is the first time we've prepped a new frame. So I'm gonna tell you how I'd go about it. I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of people that come on and say, I wouldn't have done it that way, I would have done it this way. No, I'm only joking. Critics are welcome, because it helps grow the channel. I'm going to show you how I go about this, how I go about prepping this. Things to think about as you go along. When you're doing upholstery, a lot of the work is done before the fabric goes on. For me, it's all about if the body's right, if the foam and the bodywork is right, then you're going to get a nice finish with the upholstery. So it's very important to think about how you're going to finish. You always need to be thinking forward. So when you're prepping this, you need to be thinking about when the fabric goes on, is there going to be anything that needs to be changed? Basically thinking forward. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to web the seat first. So this is a brand new frame, and you could technically put springs in it, but you know, it's such a narrow frame, so I'm not going to bother with springs because, you know, we're only going to get a couple on. So we're going to do webs across here. We'll do webs across as well. So we're going to go across this way, across that way, then we're going to Hessian the top, and that's our protection done. That's the platform of our seat. So I want to do that before I do the back. Then we're going to prep the back. So we're going to do webs on the back. Again, sometimes you get backs like this chair over here. See that chair you could put springs on. You know, you could put, I don't think it does, but you can put springs on, and springs will give you a slight dome on the back. This obviously is a very narrow chair, so we're only going to put webs on. Again, because it's so narrow between here, there's no point putting springs on the back. For me, there's no point. So we're going to be doing webs on the back, then we're going to Hessian the back. So the reason I'm doing the seat first is because under here, I need to get to that to pull on the webs to staple off. So basically I'm doing the platform, so that's done, so I can get to this nice and easy. Because once the foam's on the back, it's going to be a lot harder to get to this section here. Then we're going to web and Hessian the back. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how we foam. We put foam on the back. We're going to probably use a 2-inch white foam on the back. Again, some upholsterers will disagree. Some people will say 1-inch chip foam, 1-inch foam. I'm using a 2-inch soft white foam to give it a nice, soft, luxurious feel. Some people will put a lumber in the back. Again, I don't think there's a point putting a lumber in, because a lumber is basically a support section of foam we put here to give you a nice dome, to give you a bit of support in the lower back. But because this is such a low tub chair, it doesn't really need that. So after that point, I'm going to show you how to do a template. So we're going to do a template because obviously this fabric isn't going to come all the way around here without a join. So there's going to have to be a join somewhere. So once we get the foam on, we're going to show you how to do a template. Because obviously it's going to be a bit of fabric here and then two side bits. They're all going to be joined together. So I'm going to show you how to make that. Then on the seat, so once the back's upholstered, we're going to do a 4-inch pink foam, which is going to bring up quite high, and then I'm going to put 1/2-inch blue over the top, which gives you a nice shape on the front. So it's going to be rounded here onto the front. Then we're going to do a pipe in here and then another border here. We're going to do another piping around here and do a separate outside back. So this is how you prep a new frame and upholstery it. So to start off, I staple the front with black elasticated webbing. I go to the back, pull down tight, then staple the back, cut it off, and then I fold it over and staple it down again. That gives you extra strength in the web, so if there is any pressure, it's strong enough to hold. So as I'm putting these on, I'm making a distance of about 4 fingers in between each web. So you can see here we're pulling tight, stapling down. Now we're working our way across. So with the webs that go across, you go over, under, over, under, over, under each web. And then the next one you go the opposite. So if you went over on the first, you go under on the first, and so on. Same rules apply. Staple one side, go to the other side, pull down nice and tight, and then staple off. Now, what most high street manufacturers don't do, protect the webs or the springs using Hessian. So when you're doing platforms or Hessian, you can practice your cuts. Right, so what I'm going to do here, make sure the fabric's laid down flat. So practice. Up. Then V. V. Done. And so then you can tuck that under there, and then you can even go tighter than that. You don't need to be that accurate when you're doing the platform, when you're doing the webs. See, that goes under there. You're gonna do the same over this side. Bang. Cut that out. You don't need. Same here on this front rail. Bosh. Gosh. So now I'm just stapling off the Hessian as I work around, pull in nice and tight, and stapling off all the way around. Now what you can do, I'm probably going to do it on the front, turn your edge over, staple down. Because Hessian is a weave, so it's not, there's probably stronger fabrics you can do this with, but all I do is turn it over, like that, and you've got a stronger platform now. Right, I don't think I'm going to get in there, so I'm just going to staple down again here. There I might. So we're just cutting off our excess here. Same on the front. So I wanted to do that. Why? Because now we're going to do our back, and I wanted to get that done because it's going to be much harder for me to get under here once it's upholstered and the foam's on. So let's do this back. Right, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. As I'm going to be throwing this chair around, just going to put some protection on the legs because they are finished. Okay, so now we're webbing our inside back. And I'll pull this forward and then get a good strong tug. People sometimes ask me how far apart to position these. Now I was taught 4 fingers. 4 fingers. So there you go. But my 4 fingers are very, very small. I have very small hands. It's quite embarrassing. But yes, so 4 fingers in between these webs. But yes, I just wanted to make the point that before anyone says it, I realise that my hands are very, very small. So there's the back done. Well, it's not done. Need to put the Hessian on now, so let's do that. So now I'm stapling the Hessian off on the back, using the same logic as we do with the seat. Because this chair is so low, that's barely going to do anything. The seat's going to be up here. you're not going to notice that, but I mean, you got to do it, you know what I'm saying? So we're just going to do these bits here now as well. What we're doing now is we're going to put this white foam on. This is 2-inch soft white foam, which I use for backs. What is important is, I think it's important that we tuck a bit under the bottom there. You've got about 1 inch underneath, I'd say. So what we'll do is we'll start gluing. Glue the foam, like on all my videos, you glue both sides. Hopefully you can see here, pushing the foam into the gap. When you get to this point, so basically what we're going to do is, our foam's going to come over, or it's going to glue down onto this edge, or stay properly, we do both. But the main thing to remember is that we need to put a join in here. So, see here, on this frame, where the curve sort of starts and stops, that's probably where we're going to put our join, somewhere around here. So that's where I'm going to join the foam as well, just to try and keep it symmetrical. It's not vitally important that that the foam seam matches the fabric seam. Doesn't need to be. All right, so we've got far too much foam up here. We don't need all that. So we're going to chop it. So now what you can do is roll your foam over itself. So, do as I say, not as I do. So what I'm doing now is to get this to stick nicely. I've laid one on top of the other. I'm just going to glue them both at the same time. Then you hold it in place. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to shave everything that I don't need off. Right, and then on the front, just going to take that edge off. Then we can do the same here, like we did on the top and the side. So just rolling it over on itself. So that's the first layer of foam on, ladies and gentlemen. Ta-da! Now what I think I'm going to do is, to me, it doesn't seem like there's enough. So I'm going to go another 1/2 inch blue foam over the top of that, just to give it a nice finish. Yeah, let's do that. What we are doing here, ladies and gentlemen, I hope it's quite obvious. We are going to make a template for our fabric. I'm just going to cut roughly a fair bit away that I don't need. Now when you're doing templates, the reason I've only done half is because I can use that half, make a nip, top and bottom in the fabric, and then flip it over and copy it. That's a good way to do it because then you can get an exact copy on that side. I'm just going to temp that on at the top so it doesn't move, because it's doing a lot of movement at the moment. So that's on. So, as this is a tub chair, what you need to do is look straight on and see where you want your seams to drop. It's totally up to you. But I'm going to try and aim for this corner up here, where the frame starts to curve, which is here. But you can see here, as you come round, all this fabric's starting to ripple. So what you do is you cut in. Don't cut in too far. As you cut in, you make your cuts and it lays down. I'm just going to cut into here as well, because that's not sitting. Right, the next thing to do is you can either do it by eye, you can make a mark with your eye, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some piping cord, and I'm going to use that. Up here we're going to pin on where the frame starts to take shape. You've got to remember that the seat is going to come up to at least, I'd say, that mark there. So what I would do is just going to tuck that through. Hopefully you can see that there is a rail here. If I lift that up, you might be able to see it. There's a rail there, so that is where I want my joint to be. So I'm going to And then here, I'm gonna kick it out. I'll show you when I'm cutting it, but the reason we do that is because when the fabric goes through, if you cut it straight, your fabric's gonna go straight that way. You're not gonna have any to come this way. So if you cut a big shape at the bottom, I'll show you. And then I'm also gonna put 2 marks there so I can follow that. Now, we need to make this piece. Do you know what? I'm also gonna nip at the top where the fabric hits the frame. Right, so I'm just gonna temp that onto there. So we know we've got enough under there. What we wanna do now is again, run a pen or pencil up that piping cord. And then flare off that way with this piece, and this top's going to flare off this way. And then we're going to put our little nips. That's 1, 2. Third one's at the top there. So you can see we've got all this excess. We can get rid of all this. We can cut all this off. We're not going to need all that. So if we pull this round here, we'll see we can get rid of all of that. So if we take this off. Right, so what I mean, guys, is so this is the bottom of this template, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flare that in, like so. Remember, I'm cutting 1/2 inch away, and then as we get to the top, you can see what I've done with a pen. I've flared back off that way, just to give you a bit more fabric at the top and the bottom. So the other side will go. So when they come together, the side will go this way. So you have loads of extra fabric down here and loads of extra at the top. So yes, that is our template for our inside back. So let's go and cut that and sew it and then start putting it together, mate. So guys, as you can see, I've already cut the inside back and I've cut it very small. But we're running out of fabric, that's why I did it. But so we're just gonna put that on there. Make sure we put these nips in. Then we'll fold it in half, like so, and the copy. Now this is definitely going to need a fly at the bottom. There's no two ways about that. It is going to need a fly. That is our inside back shape. We are going to need to put a fly across the bottom. Right guys, so now we're just putting some Dacron onto our back. Right, so that is a Dacron on. Now we can put our fabric on. Hey! So obviously we made a nip here. And I want that to be there. That corner there. So here we are. Right, so I'm just going to start temping this on. So what I've done is I've pulled this down to the rail that I wanted it to be on. I'm just going to temp that on there. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Then I'm going to start working it round. With an inside back like this, it's kind of what you need to do. You need to start working. You go one side, then you go the other side. So what I'm doing, guys, is I'm working the fabric up and over. So as I work my way around. So what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm just rolling that fabric around, bringing it around to the front, nice and tight. So get rid of all that bagginess. Right, I'm really sorry here, guys. So we lost footage of how we prepped the seat. So I'm just going to quickly run through now how we did it. So we used a block of 4-inch pink foam, which is like a very soft density. So we kind of shaped that to the same shape as the seats by making a template, and we glued that down and made sure it was really nice and tight up against the back. And then we cut a big square of 1/2 inch blue, and we tucked that all the way into the gaps under the inside back, and then we sort of stapled it off on the front, and that gives you a nice round edge on the front. When you pull it down, gives you a nice round edge on the front. So that's how we got that seat look. And then we put Dacron on afterwards. Right, so what I've done here, guys, is I've laid this fabric on, and what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to put some collars on this section here. So this section here, as you come around this arm, we're not going to be able to clear this out, so we're going to get rid of that. We're going to sew a bit of fabric around it, just so you get a nice clean finish around there, because there's nothing to staple down to. What you want to do is lay the fabric on nice and straight. And what I'm going to do is I'm just marking. So what we've done is we've marked there, then we'll come over to this side and do exactly the same. So now, if we take this out, hopefully you should be able to see exactly what we did. Hopefully you can see these two marks here. So we've got this one here, and then this one here. So basically we want to put a collar around there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up to that. So I'm going to go quite tight, and then I'm going to come across like so. That cut there, so I'm going to sew a bit of fabric around there, so that will take me down and into this section here, and then out. This will bring me out for a rail, which is about 3 inches back, so that should work perfectly. We're going to do the same over here. Right people, so what we've just done is we've just stuck a few staples in here, because we're following this rail. There's a rail there, but that's going to be where we put our top border, so we just put a few in there. So now you can see in here, this is that collar that we put on. So that gets tucked into there. This one on this side, and then down the back, there is a rail down here. Let's just feel where that is. And I can feel it's there, so I'm going to cut down to there. And what I've done, I've just cut a big V down there, and that will allow me to push the fabric either side. So I'm just pulling all these through. Around here, there's far too much fabric there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a lot of that away. Well, I'm going to do the same over here as well. So what we're going to do now is start pulling all this. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling down, but I'm also pulling this way to pull out any sort of tag ties. So what I'm doing here is just cutting the excess off the fly for the inside back, so we can see the seat easier. Now this is the seat fabric, so we're pulling down nice and tight and stapling off underneath. And we're cutting off the excess, and Robert's your father's brother. There she is, beautiful. What we're doing now is we're stapling our piping around our outside back. As you can see, I'm cutting out a little V there. As I come to a corner, you cut a bit of a V of fabric out and it turns easier and it just sits nicer as well. I'm going to do the same here on this corner, cutting out a V right on the corner, so you can put a staple in and then it will sit down nice and clean for the other bit. So here, what I'm doing is I'm cutting out some of the piping cord, as the pipings need to overlap. So I'm cutting out the piping cord so the one that's coming down over the top will sit down nice and flat without having too much of a bump. So here we're putting a lining fabric on the front border just to give us a nice even tight finish on the front, just to close up all the gaps. So I've already attached my front border, so now I'm attaching my back tack cardboard strip to give a nice clean finish when you pull down tight. Now I'm gluing some 1/2 inch blue foam to the front, and then I'm stapling the top edge down onto the cardboard strip. Now I'm cutting away all the excess at the bottom. I'm going to pull my fabric down nice and tight and staple off on the bottom. Here I'm cutting around the leg. This is really quite a delicate job. I'm using a skewer there to push the fabric underneath, and then because these legs are so curved and they sit back a bit, this one really was quite difficult to get a nice finish. Howdy how. Right, so as you can see guys, we're at this stage, we're doing our outside back. So what I did is I've got an old lining, I've stapled it on, and then I've made my marks, and then I've cut away 1/2 inch away because I want it to finish ideally on where that piping cord is. And then also there's like a ridge here where I want it to finish at the bottom, so that's what I'm doing there. So I've lined that up there, so that's my outside back, and you have to do these with templates. It would take a real magi to be able to do this. And then this part here, we've already done this, but I'm just showing you what I've done. So I've got an old bit of fabric, put it on there, stapled it on where I wanted it to be. Actually, I'll put it on now just to show you. And that goes on there, and then make sure you've got enough fabric, and that goes around there, and that'll give you a nice finish. I'm gonna go and cut them now out of the fabric, then sew them together, and then come back and show you how to upholster them. We're gonna have to put a barrier lining on because obviously we need to strengthen the outside back, because that is what we do. We don't put weak outside backs on with nothing underneath it. That is an upholstery crime, and I will not stand for it. So I'm gonna go and cut them, then we'll come back and put it on, and it's all gonna be sweet. Right, so I apologise. I've done this without talking to you. So I've got my outside back, and I've sort of temped it on. So I've stapled it from here to here, and I'm making sure that these seam lines are dropping on where that piping cord is there. We'll flip that back over. Then we're gonna run some cardboard strip. Now when you're stapling back tack, you wanna make sure you push it nice and tight up into the piping cord. Nice and tight up there. I like to staple quite close to the top, because when you pull the fabric down nice and tight, it doesn't pull, it doesn't fold, because this can fold on itself. Right, so now we're just going to check this, pull it all down, make sure that it all fits nice. Now we're going to put a lining fabric on here. Right, so now we've put our lining fabric on, we're going to put on our back tack. So our back tack's going to run from here down to here. Did I say back tack? I meant metal gripper. So now we've got our back on our metal gripper and our lining, we just got to add our Dacron. So I'm just stapling my Dacron to the top of the ply grip, the back tack. So here we go. Right, so I know that I want this seam to drop onto this corner, which is exactly where it is going to drop. I'm going to do the same with this side. So here I am just using a regulator or a skewer to push the fabric down into or behind the metal gripper, cutting away any excess that I don't need where there's too much, and then pushing the gripper down. Then we'll come to hammer it in a little while. Staple the fabric off underneath, then hammer the metal gripper down to secure it. And there she is. Isn't she pretty? Beautiful. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.